So the newest corporate hell job structure just dropped, and apparently Gen Z is going to have to try out for a job like a sports team in high school for the next 30 to 40 years. So what I just found out today, I was reading LinkedIn because I'm unemployed and looking for a job currently, is there was a company that broke down, I think it was an article at Business Insider, breaking down their actual newfangled job interview structure, which apparently is functioning kind of like a tryout for like a sports team like in high school. So the way this works and the way the CEO explained it essentially is they have like a formal interview process, like a normal formal interview process, but at the end of it, instead of offering you a job or not offering you a job, they're now having like trial periods. And it didn't say in the article whether the trial period is paid or unpaid, but I'm assuming it's unpaid because this is like a tech company. The job market's kind of crap right now, so it's like they're not going to pay you. So instead of just having like a formal interview process and getting a job or not getting a job, they're now going to like have you be multiple days like in the office, like a week or two, and they're just not going to pay you. And then if they like you or don't like you, they're going to either give you a job or they're just going to tell you to, hit the bricks and get out of here. And I think on its face, I don't think it's like a terrible idea. I mean, what I would think would be a good idea for interviews would be having like the entire interview process instead of just being like the phone screen or the first interview or the second interview or the third interview or whatever. I've been in job interviews processes where I've had 5 interviews before. And luckily I got the job in that instance, but there's been people that I've heard of that had like 6 or 7 interviews and they didn't get a job. I couldn't imagine having that long of an interview process and then also having some sort of like trial period where I have to like try out with like other people to see like who is the best and who's going to get this job. But if it's paid, I don't have that much of a problem with it, but I'm kind of assuming it's not paid. This kind of reminds me of like back in the recession, if you're kind of like an old head like me, you'd hear stories about back in like 2008 where people like they would have like 3 or 4 month like unpaid internships is like kind of a common thing in law, for instance, is where they would have these 3 or 4 month unpaid internships, and then like if you were lucky, you got offered a job. And I think part of the reward for that was like you got offered a really good job. But then again, it's legal. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how good the jobs were or were not. I hear paralegals don't make anything. But yeah, like it's kind of functions like an unpaid internship. And there's another point in that article that I was looking at that was kind of interesting, which they said like resumes are dead. I kind of agree with that. Like honestly, resumes are something that seems kind of antiquated now because for one, you can just lie on them, right? It's not like it's not ethical. 100% not ethical. I wouldn't encourage you to like just blatantly lie about stuff. Like don't lie about like certifications or your degree. Something somebody could easily look up. However, like there is definitely tons of people who embellish stuff, and I mean, I'm somebody who could probably like embellish things in my resume. Like you're like, oh, instead of did this financial model, I worked with key stakeholders to produce a solution that impacts the entire enterprise process, or instead of I helped out with the budget, I successfully concocted a $600 million budget for a $1 billion enterprise. Stuff like that make you sound like way more accomplished than you actually were, that you're doing stuff way more complicated than you actually were. And I kind of support like the resumes going away because like how do you even know like someone's actually telling the truth, or how do you know somebody's like actually not just bullshitting you trying to like get a job? So if like the process was just like you had your qualifications checked out, your work history I guess checked out enough to where they can tell you're not blatantly lying, instead of having like a phone screen, instead of having like a first interview, second interview, third interview, whatever, you just had like a week tryout, that would be fine. And if they paid you for it, that'd be good too. But I could totally see this like being subject to abuse. Like I would totally see companies doing things like you'd have like, and this is for software developer jobs. So these are jobs I think where people have technical know-how and technical expertise, and they have like projects, and they can actually like in a week or two period, I think the period was like 2 weeks, produce something that can actually be used by the company, and then they can just get, just kick them out. I feel like you could see like companies abuse this and have like unpaid 2-week processes that just stack on top of each other. So you have like this engineer work on it for 2 weeks. They do a certain thing. Okay, well, we're not paying them, so get out of here. We have this engineer work on the last engineer's item from 2 weeks ago for 2 weeks. Okay, well, we're a little bit farther along in this project we want to do. Okay, we'll kick that guy out, and we'll move on to the next guy, and then move on to the next guy, and move on to the next guy. Like, you just keep stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking, like, engineers, or, like, projects, just to actually end up with, like, an end result, and you save yourself, like, millions of dollars. I hope it doesn't, like, come to that, but that's just one thing that, like, I could see companies, and, like, a huge con of that is it's definitely subject to abuse, but a lot of that has to do with like the market dynamics and, are people going to put up with 2-week unpaid internships? And what I hope is like, you don't, like people like actually don't put up with this kind of stuff and say, no, like if I'm going to be, working a job, like a tryout, I want to get paid for it because I'm doing actual work, and there's an argument to be said, I suppose, where it's like, well, you're not actually contributing to the company. But from what I understand and what I've seen in my corporate career, I guess, is that it takes you about 6 months to a year before you're actually worth your salary. Like it takes you almost a year to get up to speed to the point where you're actually contributing to the enterprise, you're contributing to the business, and you're paid that entire time. Like you get paid for the first. It's not like you work the first year for free because you're not like actually contributing. So I figured if you're going to be like at the company working for 2 weeks or whatever for this little trial period you're doing to get the job, I feel like you should be paid for it. But I don't know. It seems like a lot of like people, wages, I guess if you want to call them that, are definitely like racing towards the bottom. So I could totally see people just like coming in here being like, okay, well, I need the experience. I'm going to do this like 2-week unpaid internship, and then they'll get called into a room where it's like, hey, sorry, you don't actually get to work here, and we're gonna take everything you did and we're gonna save it off. You don't have any rights to anything that you produced while you were working at this job, like any of your like software development files or your engineering spreadsheets, or like me, maybe your financial spreadsheets. We're just gonna take all that stuff and just get out of here. Or we're gonna call security, that kind of thing. But yeah, just kind of like sum it up, I think Gen Z is gonna have to deal with like getting rid of a resume and start trying to like build a project like portfolio, no matter like what their specification or their career is going to be. And I think there's some good and some bad to that. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you liked what I said, or if you kind of like my content, man, subscribe. If not, it's all good. And until next time, take care.